Hey everybody, welcome to this month's monthly favourites. So today I'm going to talk you through the three things that have made the biggest impact in my life. Quite simply, I've been experimenting so you don't have to. Plus, if it's really good, you get the benefits. If it's really bad, I'm the only one that's experienced it. So, what have I experienced this month? Well, quite simply, there's a webcam, an audiobook, and a coffee gadget. Now, let me just dive into those very quickly. The webcam, we're all sat at home. Well, I guess some of us are sat at home having to work remotely, and I decided that rather than just dealing with the general computer webcam, I upgraded it. Anyway, I'll go into that in a moment. The second one is a book called How to Lead by David Rubenstein. That is excellent. Damn it, I shouldn't have given away my verdict already. It means you don't have to watch it. Okay, well, if you don't want to watch it, then you know the book's excellent. And thirdly, there's a coffee gadget called the Clever Dripper. Now, I love coffee, a bit of a coffee geek. I'm really trying to boost my ways that I can experience the flavors and see some cool gadgets at the same time. So, if you want to know the verdicts, then please just flick straight to the very end. Otherwise, let's dive in. If you're new here, my name is Brendan. I'm a recovering accountant and I just help millennials navigate busy lives and make sure that work doesn't suck. So, number one, the LogiTech C920 webcam. You're probably sat there thinking, really, you want to talk about a webcam? Yeah, I do. Because I've been sat dealing with Zoom calls or Teams calls or Skype calls or whatever they might be for the best part of a year, and I decided it was probably about time that I upgraded my webcam. It was probably more for the benefit of everybody else. It just means that they can now see me in crystal clear Technicolor rather than being all grainy, or maybe just getting the upward shot of the double chin when you're just kind of sat like this and it's looking down at you. Anyway, you know what I mean. Now, which one did I go for? As mentioned originally, it's the LogiTech C920. I will put a link in the description down below. But I've used LogiTech stuff in the past, but I didn't realize quite how much of a leader they were in the webcam world. Also, how bloody expensive these things can be. Now, I did a whole heap of research and I scrolled through hours and hours and hours of, might not have been hours, but heaps and heaps of Amazon reviews, and I did some geeking out on Which and other sort of CNET type reviews, and the Logitech C920 kept coming out as a top performer. It comes in full HD, 1080p camera, it has a dual microphone, it also does autofocus, and it has a really wide field of depth, which was both good and bad, and I'll come to that in a moment. So what are the pros? Well, obviously it's a crystal clear, super duper, really snazzy. Does people even say snazzy anymore? Anyway, it's a really good picture. So much so that people have actually noticed in the background, although this isn't my general spot, the details in the back garden. So I sit at the back of the house and people see into the back garden and there'll be cats walking across, and all of a sudden they say, is that your cat? I was like, no, but I'd rather you be paying attention to what I'm saying rather than looking at the background. The other side of it is, it's so good that our neighbours started doing yoga in the back garden and they were scantily dressed, and it was actually on quite an important Teams call. All of a sudden you can see people looking, and I didn't realise that they could see it quite so well. Fortunately, Teams has quite a good functionality that allows you to blur out the background, so I started doing that. Otherwise, people would see more of what's going on behind me rather than focusing on this. So as I say, it's also got an autofocus, which means it'll just follow you from where you go and has a really good wide depth of view. So when you are setting up, one thing to bear in mind, and this is one of them as well, is you have to have it slightly higher mounted, but also just consider that it might make you look further away. Unlike the 16mm camera lens that I'm using at the moment, where I'm probably, less than an arm's length away from you, the webcam, you will probably just need to sit so that actually you can either be close or far away. You just need to think about it, because otherwise you will end up bringing in much more of the shot than you intend to. Just bear in mind that a lot of us only have, I guess, what we're living by letterbox sizes, so anything outside of field of view could be messy, untidy, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, one to consider. So what were the cons? Well, as I've just mentioned, it just means that everybody else can see what's going on behind you, so you might just want to think about that. It's not really a con, but it was something that I've experienced, so you might benefit from doing so. And the other side I'm going to say was price. Now, the price has fluctuated quite a bit because of the pandemic. There's obviously been quite a big demand, so Amazon did what Amazon usually do and just ratcheted up the price. And over recent weeks, it's actually come back down again. At time of recording, which is March 2021, the price is around £80, which you might think is actually quite expensive for webcam, and you're probably right. I mean, I'm sure you can get others which are less known brands for much less, but then you just need to think about quality and whether you'd rather buy once, buy well, or pay twice if one breaks. Anyway, that's your view. My honest opinion is it's been a really good addition to my computer setup, and I'm really pleased with it, quite simply. So I think it was probably money well spent. But you know what? If you are not going to work from home for much longer, then you might not want to. Probably should have done this about a year ago, but we didn't know we were going to be in lockdown for that long. So there we go. Secondly, we're going to talk about the book How to Lead by David N. Rubenstein. I listen to this book every morning. Part of the morning routine, since we haven't been able to commute, is that I go for a walk before work. It takes generally about an hour and a quarter, and that is the time where I do my personal development. That sounds really arty, but really all I'm saying is that's actually the time that I get to myself, and I just mentally prepare for the day, but I also use it as a way of learning. This book, which is actually a New York Times bestseller, is regarded as one of the essential leadership playbooks. It's a collection of interviews held over probably the last 4 or 5 years with everybody from Jeff Bezos to Richard Branson to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That's a really interesting one. I mean, she was just an absolute pioneer and a real pleasure to listen to, as well as Warren Buffett and Oprah Winfrey and many, many more. I mean, just quickly, Rubenstein is a co-founder of the Carlyle Group, an investment private equity firm, and rumoured to be worth, I don't know the chap, unfortunately, but he's rumoured to be worth about $3.4 billion, so generally knows a few things. He's also quite well connected, and certainly the interviews that he gives, he's obviously got that personal relationship with many of them, including some of the ex-presidents. So he talks to Bill Clinton and to George Bush. That was actually really interesting. They had a really good banter, which I wasn't expecting. It's quite interesting because he also talks about the commandments. Whilst Moses had 10, Rubenstein actually has 12. These include luck, desire to succeed, hard work, long hours, focus everything on mastering one skill, failure, and integrity, i.e. not cutting any corners. The interviews are blocked into 6 areas so that the chapters all flow and you can pretty much flick between them. You could listen to them from start to finish, which is what I did, or you could just section them out and listen to them one at a time. So what are the 6 areas, you ask? Let me tell you. Number 1 is visionaries, which are people like Jeff Bezos. Number 2 is builders, such as Phil Knight from the Nike fame. Transformers is number 3, with people like Tim Cook. Number 4 is commanders, Colin Powell, the presidents that I just referred to. Number 5 are decision makers like Anthony Fauci, although recently heard that he's obviously working with the US government around pushing out the vaccine. You can now book in for your Fauci ouchie, as it's been known. Obviously it depends if you like needles or not, but that made me chuckle. And number 6, masters, where he refers to Coach K from basketball fame. In each case, the conversation is enlightening and engrossing, and often at times salted with Rubenstein's own particular brand of eye-twinkling, tongue-in-cheek humour, as the back of the book says. And my favourite was Phil Knight of Nike fame. I mean, if you get the chance to listen or read his book called Shoe Dog, please do it. Again, I'll put a link in the description below. That is a fascinating story. Because I'd read the book before I listened to the interview with Rubenstein, I knew a lot of the backstory, but just the drive and the questions and how he overcame some of the decisions and the thought process that he went through, brilliant. If you're looking for a recipe book of the play-by-plays that people like Jeff Bezos and Colin Powell took, this is not the book for you. But hearing how these luminaries tackled certain scenarios, it is fascinating. It's quite easy to listen to. I, as I've said in a previous video, listen to audiobooks on a 1.2 or 1.5 times speed. Again, it doesn't sound too much chipmunk-esque, but it is really, really useful. I listen to it on Audible and you can get a monthly credit, and to be honest, I think it's £6 or £7, whatever it is, very well worth spent. Very easy to listen to. As I say, you can dip in and dip out of each chapter, but for me, as an aspiring leader to learn and improve, I think it's highly recommended. So much like the LogiTech C920, this is a must listen for me. And number 3, the clever dripper coffee gadget thing. So I love coffee and I'm always looking at new ways to experience the taste and how to brew it and all the stuff that goes with it. And most recently I bought something called the clever dripper. It was actually recommended Gadget through one of Ali Abdul's classes, and I couldn't help but order it, and I can see why he likes it because I am a convert as well. If you're a pour-over fan, i.e. you pour the hot water over the filters, over the ground beans, then this is a gadget for you. There's a significant faff with creating pour-over coffee. Now, the Clever Dripper aims to get away from that. Quite simply, it's shaped like the V60 dripper, but rather than having to put it on top of the mug and for the coffee to go straight through, it allows you to brew the coffee. It's got a very clever mechanism underneath that when you sit it flat on the table, it doesn't pour out, but when you sit it on top of a mug, the bottom opens up and the coffee can drip through. So the way that I do it is I wet the filter paper and I put the ground beans in, and then you pour the hot water in, and all of a sudden it just starts to brew and generate that lovely coffee smell. Obviously, if you don't like coffee, you hate the smell, just ignore that bit. When the time has passed and you know what, you can brew it for as long as you like, you take it off the stand and you just put it over the top of your mug and the coffee will drip through. The wonderful part is that the filter papers stop the beans going through, and you can use it without the filter papers if you want. It's just a little bit easier. There is one part to note, and this came from experience, is just bear in mind that if you're not using a clear glass like you would see a latte glass or a cappuccino glass in a restaurant, for example, if you've got it as it's ceramic and you can't see inside it, as you put the Clever Dripper down on top of the mug, you might actually have more water in there than the mug can take. If that's the case, you're going to end up with coffee everywhere, and that's happened to me on a couple of occasions. So I would suggest that you generally tap it down, let it go, tap it down, let it go. It's a bit of a faff, but you know what, you'd rather do that than have coffee everywhere. If you like the sound of this, I'll put a link in the description below, but I think it's a great addition to the coffee setup and it would complement any kitchen. So, you know what, 3 out of 3, this for me was a good buy, and I use it almost on a daily basis. So that's it. They are the 3 things that have improved my life over the last month. If you like that, please do check out the other videos from the other monthly favorites. With that, I hope you've had a good day, and I will see you all in the next video. Cheers.